I'd like to welcome you to the 8th chapter of the book of Amos. And before we go into the 8th chapter, I'd like to mention something I missed in the 7th chapter. In verse 11, it talks about Amaziah claiming that Amos prophesied Jeroboam's death, but this was probably Amaziah trying to put a blame on uh, Amos, something he didn't do, because it mentions in 2 Kings 14:29, and Jeroboam slept with his fathers, with the kings of Israel, and Zechariah his son reigned instead of him. So now we're beginning in this 8th chapter, and it is Utos edixe me Kyrios ke idou. Thus the Lord, Kyrios, showed to me, and behold, Angos exceptu, behold, a container of a fowler. A fowler was a man who caught birds in little traps in the ground, set for him with bait, and some type of a basket that was leaning upward on a little piece of twig, and when the bird took the food, it fell down on top of the bird. And it continues in verse 2, Ke ipen Kyrios tisi vlepizamos, ke ipa angos exevtu, ke ipen Kyrios pros me, iki to peres epi ton leon mu ton Israel, u prosthiso uketi tu parelthin avton. And the Kyrios said, What do you see, Amos? And I said, A container of a fowler. And Kyrios said to me, The end is come for my leon. The laity is the English derivative. The end has come for my people Israel. Didn't mention Judah, but Israel, the northern kingdom. I shall not proceed any longer to pass by them. That's an interesting statement by God, passing by them. God, we mentioned earlier that he walked through the camp and is in the midst of this people, and he's no longer going to pass by them. Ke ololixi ta fat, excuse me, nomata tu leu, in akini te imera legi Kyrios, polis o peptokos in panti topo, epiripso siopin. And 1. The fretworks of the temple, the neu, shall shriek in that day, emera, ephemeral being the derivative, says the Lord, and there shall be many falling. In every place I will cast a silence. In, you have the English derivative, in, panti, all, topo, topography, has to do with maps and places. There shall be many falling in every place, and in every place I will cast a silence. In that day that Israel falls is what I'm seeing it here. It does mention the temple, which is kind of strange because unless it's talking about the temple up in Bethel, someplace there that they had, or it's talking about the temple in Judah and Jerusalem, but it doesn't seem like that's the subject of what God is mentioning here. But these words are clues of what could be he's talking about. And in verse 8 it continues, Acusate thee tavta, e ektrivontes penita, ke katadinastevontes patoku sapo tiskis. And acusate, we have acoustics here. Indeed, these things, one's obliterating the needy and tyrannizing the poor of the geese, the land, geology. In this kata dina stev, the din, I mentioned in the last verse, it was something to do when you see the delta epsilon ni, it has to do with dynamics or dynasty and power, ability, and tyrannizing with the kata. Tyrannizing the poor and the needy. In 8.5, legontes pote dialevsite omin, ke empolisomen, ke ta savata, ke anixomen, thesavron tu piise metron mikron ke tu megaline stathmon ke piise zigon adikon. Saying, when shall the month go by? Mean, we have a Greek word menopause or menses, that we shall make trade. And the Sabbaths, when are this, all this going to be over? In the Sabbath, Sabbata, that we should open the treasury, thesavron, a thesaurus, so treasury of words, to make, piise, the 4160, to do or to make, the measure small, metron, a meter is a mikron, micra, that is to cheat on the in their dealings in commerce by making this the measure smaller than a real measure should be. It's like, if you go to the store and you buy a 1 cup of flour, and they have a cup that's really not a full cup. It's just like a 1/16 less, but when it adds up and they make money on it by selling it as one. And to megalini, the megaton bomb, the mega is large in English derivative, and to unequally magnify the scale weight. These little weights that they had, they put on it with a yoke balance, a balance scale where you had a pivoting bar on a central axis, and when it was level straight across, then it was equal. And then you put a 1 pound weight on the right side, let's say, and it went down, and then on the left you put a pound of meat, and it would level itself at the pound. But they used weights that were off as far as for buying and selling, and they were unequally magnify the scale weight, and to make the zigon, the yoke balance scale, unjust. A zigon, we have a word English derivative, a zygote, a spore formed by 2 gametes. I'm sure you'll remember that one. But a zigon, a yoke balance scale. A zigon also could be a yoke where the 2 oxen had the yoke and it went around their necks, and they pulled a wagon or some type of a harvesting equipment. But this here I put the balance scale so I wouldn't get it mistaken for the yoke of an oxen. In verse 6, to kataste in argyrio patokus, ke penita anth ipodhimaton, ke apopasis prasios emporevsomatha, that we may acquire the poor by silver. Argyrio, this Argentina is a derivative of the country, it's named for silver. And the needy in return for sandals. And of every business we shall trade. And this is their whole purpose, was making money. And today we see that with many people. Their whole purpose in life is to make money. And the laws of the Sabbath kept people from doing this trade on the Sabbath day, and they couldn't wait for it to be over so they could make this money. Well, today in many places the Sabbath is not any longer observed, and trade is done 24 hours 7 days a week, and but this is the type of situation it was in this theocracy that called out for this not to be. In verse 7, Omni Kyrios kath iperiphanian Jacob e epilisthesite is Nikos pantata erga afton. The Lord swears by an oath according to the pride of Jacob. And he's swearing by their pride is for sure. That's what he's swearing by it. I mean, he swore by something that's true, and their pride was very true. They were very prideful. And then he says, shall there be forgotten for victory any of their works? No. They're not going to be forgotten, these things that they're doing. Nikos, victory. We have the word Nike, goddess of victory in Greek mythology. Shall there be forgotten for victory, any of their ergonomics is English derivative for works. And verse 8, ke epi tutis ou tarakthesete e gi, ke penthesi pas o katikon in afti, ke anavisete os potamos e centelia, ke katavisete os potamos Aegyptu. And concerning these things, 1, shall 2, the land, 3, 4, not be disturbed, and 1, all the ones dwelling in it mourn, follow the numbers, shall not, concerning this, shall not the land be disturbed and all the ones dwelling in it mourn? And the answer, yes, they will be, all mourning and disturbed. And 1, the consumption shall ascend as a river, and shall go down as the river of Egypt. I should have highlighted 42:15. Pretend that's yellow. Potamos. I was mentioning many places that I use Mesopotamia, the midst of the rivers. And the Potamos is a river. The Potomac River in Washington, D.C. means river. Hippopotamus, river horse. So consumption shall shall ascend as a river, and this is consumption is something bad. It's they're going to be consumed and eaten up, and bad things are going to happen, and shall come down to them as the river of Egypt, the Nile. It's going to overflow in its flood stages and inundate things all around. Ke este inti imera akini legikirios, disete o ilios, mesimvrias, ke siskotasi epi gis, tis gis in imera tophos. I miss these English derivatives here, and I'll point them out. And it will be in that day. In is an English derivative. Says the Lord. The sun, Elios. We have helium, number 2246. Helium is a derivative from that word. The sun shall go down at Mesimvrius, and the light, phosphorus, the light shall darken upon the geese, the earth, geology, during the day. Does that remind you of anything? It reminds me of the time that this did happen, and when Jesus was hanging on the cross. And Matthew 27:45, it says, and from the 6th hour darkness came upon all the land until the 9th hour. The 6th hour was started in the morning, the 1st hour at like 6 in the morning, so it was noon, midday, just as it's saying right here. And then in Mark 15:33 it says, and having become the 6th hour, darkness took place upon the entire land until the 9th hour. And then Luke it has in 23:44, and it was about the 6th hour, and darkness came upon the entire land until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was split in the middle. And so this may be what it's referring to right here. I believe it is. And so it's one of these verses that pops out and goes into the future, like the virgin bearing a son. They call his name Emmanuel. It just appears. Rachel weeping for her children because they were not. It's something just happened right in the midst of nothing particular, a long story about that. And this is another place I believe that's a prophetic verse. And the light shall darken upon the earth during the day, and it certainly did. We were told when the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, was crucified. And it continues in 10, ke metastrepso tas eortas imon is penthos, ke passus odas imon is threnon, ke anavivaso epi passen. We will continue there in a second. And I will convert your holiday feasts, eortas, into mourning, and all of your songs, odas, an ode, into threnon, wailing. I could have highlighted that odas as an ode. And I will bring upon every loin, osphin, sakon. I will bring upon every loin sackcloth, sakon with sack, and upon every kephalin, head, phalachroma, ke epipas and kephalin, phalachroma, ke thesomeavton os penthos, agapitu, ke tus medavtu os imeren odhinis. And upon every kephalin head, the cephalic has to do with the head in English, baldness. And I will appoint him as one mourning a beloved one. Agape 2. I will appoint him. Who is the him? Israel? Or uh, is it someone else? As one mourning a beloved one. This is what was like with Jesus, mourning a beloved one. And the ones with him as a day of grief. The ones with him. Now, here's the only instance of a definite article, which I forgot to mention at the beginning, that we're featuring in this verse is a definite article with a prepositional phrase. Like you don't have to remember all of these things and understand them all, but just trying to explain that the article, like tus, in the plural accusative, is the modifying with, was a preposition. Like a preposition is by, over, under, around, through, and with him. Then the ones with him as a day of grief. And so this time that the Syria comes against Israel is going to be, as one would be mourning a beloved person, somebody that they loved. It's going to be a sad day. And the ones with him is a day of grief. It's going to be a terrible situation. And then it continues in verse 8. Idou imere erkonte legi kyrios, ke exapostolo limon epietigin, ou limon arton, ou de limon idatos, ala limon tu accuse ton logon kyriou. Behold, days come, says Kyrios, and I will send out a famine upon the Gene, geology, the Gene, the land. Not a famine of bread loaves, nor a famine of water, but a famine to hear the logon, the word, acoustics, of Kyriou, of the Lord. Kyriou is in the genitive, of the Lord. A sad time, and a famine to hear the word of the Lord. These people were living in a place that was a theocracy. It was designed by God, the government by God, and they were given the oracles of God, and they knew them, and they ignored them to the point where God destroyed the people. And so what did God do? He took all these people away from this land over into Iraq. Today it was called Iraq, and Babylon, Mesopotamia. People in Mesopotamia didn't have a plethora of Bibles sitting around waiting for these people to come and read. They didn't have anything. They had their own gods at that time, and not Muslim countries, of course. That was way later after Christ, but they had their own gods, and so these people no longer had anything to read unless they somehow were able to take something along with them, but maybe that's what it's talking about here. And they had a famine of the word, to hear the word of the Lord. It wasn't being spoken anymore. These people were now hearing the idolatry of the Mesopotamian area. And it continues in verse 12. Ke salefthison te idata apo ti stalasis eos thalasis, ke apovora eos anatolon. Perithramunte zituntes ton logon tu kyriou, ke umi evrosin. And waters shall shake from the thalassies, thalactic is to do with seas, from the sea unto sea. Could be the Mediterranean to the Dead Sea, something like that. And from the north, Vora, the aurora borealis, Bora, Vora. And from north unto Anatolon, east. The Anatolia was, it actually was called, Turkey was called Anatolia, but it means east. One shall be running around seeking the word of the Lord, the logon, Kyriou, and in no way should they find. And that may be the case of some time in the future, but right now, Bibles are all over the world. The Apostolic Bible has went out so far to 100, we're at I think 143 countries. People have come to the Apostolic Bible.com and have downloaded freely the Greek, Old and New Testament as you're seeing it right now. Every day about 25 downloads, 7 days a week, not including the purchases that people make. And so, and it goes out. Every day I have letters from people from, this week I think from China and Egypt, just thanking us that this is free, that they can download it free, and that the Greek is there. They can see it and read it in the original and get an understanding of it. And people from countries I'd never even heard of, I had to look them up on a map. Vanuatu is an island country in the out in the Pacific. I think I got that right. And other places in the Indian Ocean. I can't think it was an island south of India, not Sri Lanka, but south of that. Mauritius maybe. All these places. So the word is going out to the world right now. So I don't see how this is what it's talking about. I think it's talking about these people at that time. In verse 13, it continues, in ti imera akini ek lipsusin e partheni e kale ke inianiski en dipsi. In that day, one, and we follow the numbers, the virgins, the Partheni, the Parthenos, temple for the virgins in Athens, the two, the fair virgins, Kale, a kaleidoscope is a good view, scope, Kale, kaleidoscope, a good view, fair. The fair virgins and the young men will dissipate by thirst. The young people they're going to be taken and caused to travel maybe 1,000 miles, and they will be dying along the way. In verse 14, the ones swearing by an oath, e omniontes kata tu ilasmu Samarias, ke legontes zi o theosu, dan ke o theosu, virsavia ke pesonte ke umi anastosin eti. The one swearing by an oath according to the atonement of Samaria. The atonement was actually in Jerusalem, but these people still reaching out to Samaria. And the one saying, your God lives, O Dan, and your God, O Beersheba. Dan was one of the main furthest northernmost places of Israel. In 1 Kings 4:25, it says, here it is, 4:25, and Judah and Israel dwelt, being yielded each in his grapevine and under his fig tree from Dan unto Beersheba all the days of Solomon. And Beersheba was down south and Dan was up north. So the one saying, your God lives, O Dan, and your God, O... And they shall fall, and in no way should they rise up again. These people are going to be taken out they're going to fall, be taken away, and they will not come back again. And the next chapter, 9, the hope arrives. And so far we've had 8 chapters of woes, depressing situation that these people were in, and hopefully we're not in anything as depressing as they are, being taken away to places where we would not have God's Word. We wouldn't have a Bible. I can't imagine if this country was overrun and the people took us to some place like Saudi Arabia where you couldn't pray, you couldn't read the Bible, and you were forced into becoming something other than a Christian or a believer in the Old Testament. And this is what happened to these people. They were taken away by force, and they could no longer even come to the God because it was all over for them. And the people were scattered, and we don't know where they are, where they went, the northern kingdoms, but the hope, like I said, arrives in chapter 9, and I hope you can be with us next time. God bless.